Shalom everybody, it's Kalila Kelly, Irish Jew. Apologies for the appearance of pimples, but celibate at the moment. I'm stress eating my way through this month. A very anti-Semitic month to begin with, Glastonbury, and now we have a Sydney preacher learning his fate over controversial lectures found to be fundamentally racist. Yes, indeed, a Sydney-born Islamic preacher vilified the Jewish community in lectures posted online that perpetuated age-old tropes against Jewish people that are fundamentally racist and anti-Semitic, the federal court found. This is the guy who lives in the western suburbs of Sydney in Australia. It is an area that is very Islamic. There's a big Muslim population in the western suburbs of Sydney. It's not a safe place to go if you're a Jew. You would not wander down the streets of Bankstown wearing a Star of David, for example. And in fact, there are even places in South Sydney where there are large Lebanese populations. You definitely wouldn't walk down the street in Brighton, Les Annes, for example, with a Star of David or a yarmulke or any other identifiable piece of jewelry. Literally. This is the same in Sydney, the same in London, Paris. There are no-go zones for Jews. In Berlin, there are no-go zones for Jews and gays. And well done Anglo-Western societies for importing this radicalism. Slow clap for you. But this is the guy, here we go, the preacher. Yes. Replete with keffiyeh. Wouldn't be anything without his keffiyeh. And it was found that most of his 5 speeches that he delivered at the Al Medina Dawa Centre in Bankstown, Western Sydney, basically would offend, insult, humiliate and intimidate Jewish people in Australia, and disparaged Jews as shifty, treacherous, vile people and descendants of apes and pigs. So that's fun. And what I find interesting, though, is that there was one speech that this hate preacher gave that was not found to be hateful, because it was critical of the Israeli Defense Forces and Zionists. And you can't, apparently, infer that that means all Jewish people. But with all due respect to the judge, that's quite behind the times, really. It's behind the times. 100% anti-Zionism is the modern anti-Semitism. The two are conflated now. It doesn't take much digging to unpack that. It's very clear. And many people make out that it isn't, but it doesn't take much questioning, doesn't take much conversation to unveil the very clear connection to Jews when people criticize Zionism or the IDF. This man said that, well, no, I was acting in good faith. I was trying to warn my community of these evil people, and it's based in our religion. And the judge said that there was no reasonable basis on which he could have, in good faith, believed that what he was teaching was indeed the teaching of Islam. And the judge said that there was no foundation in Islam, no theological foundation or scholarly theological foundation in Islam for insulting Jews. And I beg to differ with the judge respectfully. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Certainly in the Hadith, in Bukhari, and certainly in parts of the Koran, Jews are regarded negatively, and certainly in the Hadith, they are literally defined as being the worst of people who will hide behind the tree in the end days, and then good Muslims have to run around looking for all the Jews to kill, and the trees will say, hey, come over here, there's a Jew hiding behind me, kill him. That's in the recognized tenets of the theology of Islam. So it's a bit worrying when you have judges in places like Australia who are not up to speed with what is in the text. And maybe we all need to have a better education around Islam, around Judaism, around Christianity. We need to study religion, because even in secular societies, religion is rearing its head again, certainly with Islamism. But in response to that, actually, is the rise of Christianism, if you can call it that. So religion isn't going anywhere. And if we learned more about the theological texts, and I include myself in this, like I need to get back into my reading. I really need to finish the New Testament. I really need to finish, I've got a copy of the Koran over there. I'm nearly finished. It's about the third time I've read the Koran. There are some beautiful passages. There are some terrible passages. Same in the Torah. Some incredible passages and some really horrific passages, right? But yeah, so it's kind of, you know, they're saying that the case was not about freedom of expression or religious freedom, but about anti-Semitism and the abuse of those freedoms in order to promote anti-Semitism. And again, it's this shying away from the fact that, unfortunately, there is a lot of anti-Semitism in Islamic theology. And some people say, well, look at the Talmud and you hate non-Jews, etc., etc. It's not the same thing. I haven't read the Talmud. I should. I think any hatred of another group just based on who they are is pretty shit. I don't recommend it. I don't like it. I don't endorse that. Yeah, so that's, you know, that's happening in Western Sydney. And then here, Glastonbury, hatred against Jews is being mainstreamed. Here we go. Bob Vylan, there he is, singing. And then we've got the old Irish kneecap, Iro. Still haven't heard any of their songs, don't really want to. But Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who's a goddess, who's an amazing woman, you've got to read her stuff. I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've seen her online. She's fantastic. She grew up in Somalia, I believe, and escaped to the West, escaped to the Netherlands, became a politician. One of her best friends was beheaded by some crazy Islamists. Her life has been in danger for, you know, forever. And I think she's in the United States now, and she's a brilliant, brilliant, beautiful, intelligent woman, just so sophisticated. And she says hatred against Jews is being mainstreamed. If you look at it, if you watch very closely, don't focus on the rap or the artist like Bob Vylan or frickin', what is his name? Yeezy Jeezy, the dude who was married to Kim Kardashian. Oh my God, I can't even remember. You know who I mean. He used to be cool in the 90s. Oh my God, anti-Semite. But she says, don't focus on the rap or the artist. Look at the audience. The audience is enraptured by this. And they are. When they were all chanting, death, death to the IDF, it was like a little Nazi youth rally. Not exaggerating here. This is the new fascism, the left-wing fascism. And yeah, I think Ayaan Hirsi Ali is right. Like, anti-Semitism is out in the open. It's so cool, yo. It's in the club. It's in the songs. It's at the festivals. And this is more about the West declining and says more about Western decay and the lack of morality in the modern West than it says anything about Israel or the Jews. It's, you know, it's just one of these things where the people who think that they've got the history nailed, who think that they're in the right, are the most ignorant about history and certainly about the Jews, and they will keep being surprised, hurt, and disappointed when the Jews and the IDF and Israel keeps winning. And they scorn the story of the Jews. They scorn the history. They scorn this incredible lineage, and they definitely scorn the Bible. Hello, heater. Yeah, they do. See, even my silly little heater agrees with me. But we ignore our connection and our foundation of the nation of Israel at our own peril. We ignore the Bible and its teachings and its history at our own peril, at our own ignorance. And we're completely entitled to be, and I'm talking about the West here, we're completely entitled to be, you know, pagan, demoralized, disconnected, weak, in the Dark Ages, etc. We're completely entitled to dig our own grave as we have been. It's just, I'm just so grateful that I'm part of the nation of Israel, that I'm part of a tiny, tiny group of people who have a moral code, an ancient moral code, who have been through this before and who will survive this, because we are an eternal people. And every time you have these MOs up on stage in Glastonbury jumping around, you know, with their shirts off and their dreadlocks flying in the air and they're acting all cool, every time they do that, they are the numpties. And I get to be one of the people who says, wow, it's really shit. Anti-Semitism is really shit. And it's also very clarifying. It's really clarifying to be at the pointy end of the spear, so to speak, to be going through what needs to be going through before everyone else. That is the fate of the Jews, to go through those disgusting, horrible, really painful patches as a kind of forewarning, like the canary in the tunnel for the rest of everyone else behind us. And with that absolute, you know, life or death scenario for Jews, that's a clarifying thing. You know, when you have stress or conflict, you know what you really, really don't want in life. It helps you to say, hey, this is what I really do want. And that's where Jews get to be, at the very pointy end of that choice. Others in the West, like these absolute morons at Glastonbury, are happily sleepwalking into a fate and into a future that they are creating, but they don't know the consequences of yet. But don't worry, in the next 20 years, oh my God, there will probably be some kind of civil war in the UK. There will be something going down in the USA. There will be shit going down in Europe. It's going to get really pointy, at the pointy end of the knife, at the pointy end of the sword, as it were, metaphorically speaking. But by that time, I think Israel will have moved on, will have formed an incredible alliance with certain other Arab states in the Middle East. I think the Middle East is going to ironically transform and become quite powerful, like a real powerhouse. And I think Europe is going to just descend into this mucky chaos and probably end up becoming quite fascist and nationalistic, because they're not solving the problems now while they have the chance. So it's going to be solved in very messy, dark ways, I think, in the near future, for real. For real. I know that I mope and gnash my teeth and like weep about what's happening to Britain, for example. But I also know historically, similar to the Jews, like you poke the sleeping lion long enough, when it wakes, that shit gets ugly. So Britain's gonna be an interesting one to watch when they finally wake up and they're pissed off. Yeah. Anyway, those are just my thoughts about the world today on this lovely night. I hope you're having a good one. And shalom. See ya. Bye.